Chapter 1. Leeds, England, May 1941. Air raid sirens wailed as Beryl jumped off her bicycle and rushed into the house. She jerked the blackout curtains closed and turned to look at her mother, sitting on the couch. Mum clutched the picture of Dad with both hands, tears trickling down her cheeks. Beryl pushed aside her own grief once again. God, please help me with her. Mum, come quickly. We must get to the shelter. Her mother slowly lifted her head, as if in a daze. Beryl grabbed her by the arm and pulled. Mum, we have to go now. Mum glanced at Beryl, then nodded, and slowly rose from the couch, still holding the picture in one hand. Beryl grabbed her mother's knitting bag while holding on to her mother, then led her through the house toward the back garden where the Anderson shelter was. As they hurried out of the house, Beryl's eyes searched the dark sky for planes. How far away were they? What would be hit tonight? The persistent wail of the air raid siren as it moved from a low to a high pitch every few seconds permeated the air as she helped Mum navigate the back steps and wished she could turn on the torch to guide them. They crept carefully around to the entrance of the shelter that was partially sunk into the ground and covered with earth, grass, and a few of Mum's flowers, alongside some potato and carrot plants her father had planted in their victory garden. Beryl handed her mother's knitting to her, then removed the steel shield that covered the opening. Go ahead and step inside, Mum. I don't want to. I don't like it in there. Mum planted her feet. Beryl didn't blame her mother for feeling that way. Who liked spending the night in a hole in the ground like a mole? But it was either here at home or one of the shelters under the buildings in town packed with strangers. At least they would be close to home whenever the all-clear sounded. Mum, listen. Hear the siren? We must go inside the shelter before the bombs come. Beryl scanned overhead again, looking for signs of the enemy in the searchlights that roamed the sky. Mum glanced up as well, as if trying to verify Beryl's statement, then looked back at Beryl with worry. Remember how James and Dad worked so hard to make this shelter for us so we'd be safe? Beryl listened for the drone of planes and the ack-ack of anti-aircraft fire. Now, be a dear and stoop down so you don't bump your head. When Mum complied, Beryl gently guided her mother inside, holding on to her to keep her from falling as she stepped down into the shelter. Still wearing her air raid warden helmet and uniform, Beryl climbed in behind her mother before replacing the steel shield over the opening. Dark and damp, the shelter smelled musty. Beryl's eyes adjusted as she and Mum crouched down to sit facing each other on the narrow cots, their knees touching. She groped for the battery-operated shelter lamp. As a precaution to keep any light from emitting from the shelter, she had placed a piece of black cloth over the door. Of all people, she was well aware of the danger, often reprimanding other people for not covering their windows at night as part of her duty. But they had to have some light in the shelter, plus it helped ease her mother's fears. She turned on the switch, then set it as far away from the door as possible in the confines of the 6-foot-long shelter. Mum placed Dad's photo beside her as she lifted the knitting and began clicking her needles, her only pastime since Dad died. At least she had something to busy herself, but Beryl worried about how isolated she'd become from her friends and neighbors. She hoped all the people in town had made it to a shelter somewhere. Not everyone had a garden with one of these corrugated steel shelters or a Morrison shelter inside, so Beryl's job was to guide those people to the public shelters. And sadly, some people were too stubborn to go to shelters, taking their chances of being hit by a bomb. Unlike London, where she served when the war started, Leeds had no tube tunnels where hundreds of people could gather. But there were some large shelters, like the ones built in the town square. She might be in one of those now, too, except for the fact that she had to get home to take care of Mum. Her mother was still in the throes of depression and grief over the loss of Dad, killed only 2 months ago in the Nazis' biggest